Hello guys, welcome to the channel. Welcome to something a little bit different today. As you know, I'm an absolute horror fanatic, as you know, but I do have other sort of type of movies that I love. As you know, I like film noir. I like dramas. I like all kinds of different genre films, even comedies to a point. But there's one that I don't normally talk about, and it's a little bit of uh, I don't know the name of the word for it, but something you wouldn't expect me to like, and it's Disney. I absolutely love Disney films. I guess because it's what I was kind of brought up on, when I was younger. Just turn this around slightly, guys. That's it. When I was young, obviously Disney. The very first film I ever saw at the cinema was Jungle Book, which my parents took me and my sister when we were really young to the local cinema down south, and that experience stuck with me forever. It's just sort of like, wow, seeing it on the big screen and having sort of ice cream and all this. It was almost like a holiday in 2 hours, if you will. And so that was my first experience of cinema, and I've loved Disney really ever since. Um, and I brought me lad up on Disney as well because he loves Disney. We're from different eras of Disney. I'm the very early sort of 1940s, 50s, 60s, maybe 70s. He's more of the sort of latter ones, maybe the 80s and the 90s. So he's the Hercules, Aladdin, Lion King era, and I'm the Jungle Book era, if you will. So, but we both have a love of Disney, and we both absolutely really enjoy it. It's an absolute guilty pleasure, if you will. But is it? Is it really a guilty pleasure? What is wrong with not liking Disney? I mean, yes, animation has changed a lot. I mean, now since Pixar sort of became a sub sort of company of Disney, and we got treated to films like Toy Story and Monsters Inc. A lot of the films from Disney from them were that like 3D animation, not the 2D that we've grown up on, and I do miss it. I do miss the 2D. I do like the new modern ones, they're really cool, but I just think there's something more charming and draws me in more when it's a 2D. But anyway, we're going to look at Disney today because I've got quite a big Disney collection. I do have a box set of Disney, and it's this one here. It's quite old now. This one was out in 2018, and it's the complete collection, it says, but it's not, and we'll talk about that at the end. It isn't the complete, and it has outdated itself a little bit now because they do have a newer version of this out, which completes it with a few more films that have been released since 2018. I think the wrong thing that they did with this is calling it complete, but it is complete. But it says complete 1937 to 1918, and that's still not true. There is still some movies missing out of this, but this is an exceptional box set. And it's absolutely fantastic. So we won't waste any time. Let's have a deep down look at Walt Disney. Right, so here we are, guys. Here is the Disney Classics 1937 to 2018. It says complete, but it isn't. We'll get to that at the end. Movie collection. Now, this is a Blu-ray set. It says released on Blu-ray, and it does contain though 5 DVDs because some of the films when this was released were only ever released on DVD, so they could only put the DVD in there. I believe the newer version, some of those films, maybe all of them, are now on Blu-ray, so that's probably one of the differences from the new set that is out now, which is similar. It's similar to this. I think they've taken off the word complete, and I think they've called it 36 movie collection because it has 36, I believe. This one has, I believe, about 55 movies in here, which 50 of these will be Blu-ray and 5 of these are on DVD. So it comes in this absolutely massive set with the classic Steamboat Willie on the front there, and on the back we have a list of all the movies that are in here. In fact, there's 56 films on here, And so you got 51 on Blu-ray, and you have 5 DVDs. It does explain it here, because it says it contains 55 Disney classic movies, 50 Blu-ray, 5 DVD, and a booklet, and space for Disney's Ralph Breaks the Internet Blu-ray disc, which I have in here. And that's another little grumble, which we'll get to when we get to that disc. It does have, this is a slip case, so we're going to take that off. The box is pretty much, I am standing up for this at the moment. The box is the same as the slipcase. We'll put that aside for the moment. So here is the box. It's exactly the same, except on the back you don't have the film listings. You have a quote from Walt Disney, which says, "If you can dream it, you can do it. Always remember that this whole thing was started with a dream and a mouse." Walt Disney. And we've got some characters here, looks like from Bambi. So that's what the set looks like. We'll turn it around. It comes with 2 compartments. You've got one here with the films and one here with the book. So we're going to take these out. We'll pop them there. It's very well uniformed. I've got to say, I love that it's well uniformed. The movies are in here, so we'll get to that after we've looked at the book. Normally I do it the other way around, but this time for this set I think we're going to actually look at the book first. So I can maybe sit down for this one. Let me open it and we can see if I can get this one in the screen. Maybe we can now slightly come down slightly. There we are. It's probably a bit better. I can maybe sit down now. So I was standing up because it's so big. Right. So here is the book. This is produced by DK. It's a part of it. I believe there is a bigger book, and this is part of it. But this is the part that really sort of like goes into the celebration of Walt Disney's Animation Studios. And I'll tell you the difference with the newer set. Okay, the newer set, you also have this book, but you also get a set of art prints. In this older one, there is no art prints in there, which is a bit sad. And like I said, it's got the newer ones also got about 6 movies that are not in this set. And like I said, now some of the DVDs that are in this one have now got Blu-ray releases, and I believe they are now Blu-ray. So there is quite a little bit difference with the newer set, but it looks exactly the same, except the price is a lot different. I mean, this one is out of print. You can't buy this anymore, but if you searched around, you could probably pick this up for about 150, 160, something like that. The new set sells for about 300 new. So it's a little bit more steeper, if you like, but you're getting a few more movies and you're getting some art cards. But to be honest, I'm really happy with this one because it covers all the films that I love from the Disney. Now, if I want the other films, I can buy them singly. Anyway, let's get into the book. So, a celebration of Walt Disney Animation Studios there with Dumbo, and really cool. One of my favourite is Dumbo. Definitely in my top 5. I will do a top 10 Disney at some point if you're interested. So we get this. This is written by Jim Fanning, this book. And we have a contents. There's an early drawing of Mickey there, and some diagrams from various well-known Disney. Obviously, we've got the 7 Dwarfs, we've got Frozen, Lion King, Lady and the Tramp, Jungle Book. I'm sure that's Aladdin and Dumbo once again. So this gives you a timeline of 1920s to 1930s, and it talks to you about the beginnings of Disney, which started off as a comic book back in 1924, and it goes through all the sort of little things that came out at that time. Very cool. And it does break down here. There's a key to tell you what what it was, if it's a live action film or, you know, whatever it is. It sort of breaks down the whole kind of breakdown. In 1928 there is probably the most famous starting date with the Disney, with obviously Steamboat Willie there with Mickey Mouse, and it tells you there that the first film there, Snow White, in 1937. So it goes all the way through a timeline, so in through the 1940s to the 1950s, and in the 1960s to the 1970s. You can see what I'm going to say at the end, one of the negatives about this one. 1980s to 1990s, and 2000s to 2010. And then we come to Drawn Disney. And there's another quote there. Cartoon animation offers a medium of storytelling and visual entertaining which can bring pleasure and information to people of all ages everywhere in the world. It's another quote from Walt Disney. And then we got a bit about Meet Walt. So it's about telling us a little bit about the history of Walt and his early life, to his love for drawing and probably starting his business. Then we get to the early years, which discusses the early years of Walt Disney with the rabbit, you know, Oswald. The mouse that started it all. Then we get on a bit there about Mickey Mouse. It's strange, isn't it, guys? You probably thinking, oh, I've never thought I'd see a day with Geoff doing videos about Disney. But yeah, why not? I mean, yes, I love horror films, but I'm a grown man now. But before when I was a young lad, my love of film had to start somewhere, didn't it? So Disney was probably where it started, to be honest. Like I said to you, my very first film I ever saw at the cinema was Jungle Book. And I'm sure the first time I took my son to the cinema, I'm sure it was a Disney film. I really am. But yeah, I can't, my memory is not 100% that great anymore, so that could be wrong. But we have an early drawing there, concept drawing there from Snow White. And then we have this, a bit of a blurred image, but it's just the way that picture was taken. I don't mind it. I think it's quite cool. Then we're going on talking about Pinocchio, another favourite of mine. Absolutely love Pinocchio. Here's the thing I was having a discussion about with my lad, because I was saying to him, Disney have a lot of horror elements. Now, think about Snow White. It's a folk horror, isn't it, really? You've got a young girl that's kind of lost, that goes to stay with these dwarfs in the wood, and she then gets poisoned by a witch, and there's a witch in the film, you know, and it's all based upon like folklore. So it is kind of like as folk horror elements. Now, Pinocchio has little bits of creature feature in there, and as well as body horror, if you will. He's made of wood, and he turns to a boy, and he gets eaten by a whale. You know what I mean? There's all kind of things that happen in these things. So there are elements of horror within these innocent fairy tales. But if you think of fairy tales like the Grimm brothers and things like that, they were pretty much horror stories. But anyway, here we have another one here with the elephant Dumbo. This one is, if I had to think of any sort of horror elements to it, it would probably be an entrapment kind of horror, where he's trapped within this zoo and he's disfigured, if you like with the big ears, a bit like the Elephant Man, if you will. You know, it has that kind of sort of theme running through it. Marvelous Multiplane. So we've got here another part about the way they used to create some of the scenes in the scene, because what they'd do, they would layer each layer, or each of these would have a layer like a background, and then they would film from down, you know, to get that screen to make it look, you know, just really cool. What an amazing technique. This one is talking about them preparing it here for the Bambi film. Animal artistry, talking about where they get their inspiration from here. Obviously they've got a live deer and they've got artists drawing it, and we had Bambi, which again has other horror elements to it, a little bit of a survival horror going on in there, a bit like Jungle Book. Both kind of survival horrors, aren't they, really? I'm not saying they're out horror films. I know it's probably the way my brain is sort of twisted, that I always try to see the horror and everything, or trying to justify why I like it. But no, I just do. I just think Disney is just it's just worldwide, family friendly for anyone to like it of all ages. I'm sure everyone's got a Disney film that they love. Like I said, I will do a top 10, so I won't disclose my favourite one today. I will do that on another video. So this one here, they're talking about the making of Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty in the 50s. And you can see how the animation styles kind of changed through the decades. We're going on to Alice in Wonderland, another crazy film, right? Really crazy film. Could be classed as a little bit like a folk horror, if you will. Well, I mean, like these, really. I mean, Cinderella, Alice, and you know, Sleeping Beauty. There's a witch in there. You know what I mean? There's elements of these things going through these early things. Early animators' desk. It's showing you what one of the early sort of animators' desk would have probably looked like. Tours of the trade. So they're talking about the way that they obviously created these cells to create the film. The art of sound. Now we're going into the sound, not just the music, but the actual sound of these wonderful films, how they're all created. Voice in it. We've got Cliff Edmonds up there, who played Jiminy Cricket. We obviously had the band there, play sort of the Jungle Book there, sorting the music out. Burl Ives had a big part in a lot of these things. So we go Louis Prima's jazz band that did the music in Jungle Book, King of the Swingers. And we go on to Jungle Book, which was the first Disney film I ever saw. It goes through a little bit how that was created. Fantastic. Fantastic. Then we get on to, which I think is a little bit one of the most underrated or underappreciated Disney film. That's 101 Dalmatians. I do love that. And again, there's got little horror elements, isn't it? Cruella de Vil, there's kidnapping. She's thinking of turning them all into fur coats, killing them all. You see what I mean? It's weird, isn't it? And then they're talking about other films, Robin Hood and Lady and the Tramp. Peter Pan, one of the sort of fantasy films that came out of Disney. Transforming the Princess. So we're moving on now to the more my lad sort of era, now with Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast. That's a fantastic one, Beauty and the Beast. Really cool. Really, really cool. And we're talking about Aladdin. Robin Williams' character there, Genie. And you got to look at the cast members that they've had through these films, guys. People voicing it. Some of the early films had Bing Crosby and people like Basil Rathbone in it and things like that. I think this one is actually my son's favourite Disney film. It's a cross between this one, The Lion King, and Mulan. I think that's his two favourites. It's iconic though, isn't it, Lion King? Had a real old school classic feel to it. There we go, talking about Mulan. The Princess and the Frog. Now we're moving up to right to the modern ones with films like Frozen, which are good. But like I said, you can see how they've adapted the Pixar kind of animation style on the new modern ones compared to the traditional 2D. Now this one is Big Hero 6, which I think is a part of the Marvel universe. I'm sure it is. So I think this was the first Marvel film that Disney actually brought out. It could possibly well be. Surprise and salutes. Very cool. And then we have a little credit at the back there of the films. And here we have, this has to be in here. This is nothing really special. What it is, it's just the certification, if you will, for each film and telling you what special features, what sounds are on each film. That's all this is. Like you get on the back of the box. Obviously, because they're not in individual cases, they're in a big book box. They can't do it, so they've had to put that in there. So that's what that is. So that is a closer look at the book. So I'm going to now bring the movies in. So we'll take this one out and we'll bring in the movies. Let me try and make this a bit easier for me, if we will. Give me a minute, guys, while I fiddle around a bit here. All right. You know what I'm like. I'm never prepared for this sort of stuff. But it wouldn't be my channel if it was, would it? It really wouldn't. So this is the section here with the movies. I believe it does have a quote on the back, which is the same that is on the other box. Let's just see if we can get everything on screen. Might just slightly come up, just slightly. There we are. Okie dokie. Which should be good. But we do have another quote from Walt Disney, which was in the other book, and it's cartoon animation offers a medium of storytelling and visual entertainment which can be bring pleasure and information to people of all ages everywhere in the world. And it starts with a picture of Walt himself. So now we're going to get into the movies. So we're going to go through what movies are in this set. Each movie is in its year, so it's all set out 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And it starts with the very first feature film of Walt Disney, which is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which was 1937 on Blu-ray. Then on this Blu-ray we have Pinocchio, which was 1940, which was the second one. Then we had The Wonderful Fantasia, 1940. So a busy year that year for Disney. They brought 2 out. And then we had The Incredible Dumbo in 1941. Crazy, right? Made during World War II. So we're going over to the next page. And then we have Bambi, the first one on this 4 set, which was 1942. Followed by Saludos Amigos. Now, that is one of the DVDs. As you can see, it's just on DVD. The rest of them so far have been Blu-ray. They're all Blu-ray unless I point it out. It's on DVD on this set. I'm not sure if this has had a Blu-ray release yet. I am not sure. But that's that one there. As Walt Disney Goes to South America. So it's a bit of an obscure. There is a few obscure films in here, which is a bit strange because I think there's a couple of films that should be in here that are not. Next up is the 3 Caballeros, which is also on DVD. As you can see, these are more rarer kind of films than the ones that you all know. And that's why they haven't pursued to get them on Blu-ray or this set. But like I said, I think maybe the new set, they might well be on Blu-ray now. Then we have Make Mine Music, which is a musical. Things like Benny Goodman and stuff playing with music in there. Again, that is also DVD. So it's 3 DVDs there. So we've got 2 more to go on DVD. So coming back over, we have Fun and Fancy Free, which was a musical sort of feature length. And that one is on Blu-ray. And that was 1947. Melody Time, which was another DVD here, which was another musical one, and that was 1948. it's obviously that time. Musicals were prolific, weren't they, through Hollywood? You know, you had all your musicals and stuff, you know, Fred Astaire, Gene Kelly and stuff like that. So these are going to be repeating that in cartoon form. But there we are. But they didn't go back to putting out a few more movies. We have Ichabod and Mr. Toad, and that's the one with Bing Crosby and Basil Rathbone. Very cool, with the Headless Horseman, I believe in that one. And then we've got another classic with Cinderella, and they say it's their greatest film since Snow White. So that was 1950. So we're in the 1950s now. 1951, we have Alice, I nearly said Alice Cooper, Alice in Wonderland. And in the following 2 years later, we had Peter Pan and Lady and the Tramp, both in the same year, 1953. I think, no, that was 55. Then we had about a 4-year gap, and we had Sleeping Beauty come to our screens in 1959. Then, like I said, the unappreciated, I think, 101 Dalmatians, which I adore, is 1961. Animation style started to pick up in quality at this point. Really cool film, really love that one. Then we had their version of The Sword and the Stone, which is King Arthur and Merlin, which came out in 1963. Then we had the masterpiece Jungle Book in 1967, which was the year I was born. 1970, they ended that decade with The Aristocats, another classic film. So we're now into the 70s. 1973, they pushed out Robin Hood. And again, we had a gap, according to this. In 1977, we had The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, followed by, in the same year, The Rescuers, which did get a sequel. These are all on Blu-ray at the moment. And then we had The Fox and the Hound, 1981, which I remember my lad loving this film. Really enjoyed this one. It reminds me of him when I watch this. This one and Basil, the Great Mouse Detective. I remember him watching when he was really young. So now we're moving on to the 80s. 1985 is The Black Cauldron, which is the very last DVD that is in this box set. I do believe that this one is actually out on Blu-ray now. Then we have Basil, the Great Mouse Detective, 1986. Oliver and Company, 1988. And then The Little Mermaid took us out of the 80s in 1989. So now we're going to the 90s. We have the sequel to The Rescuers, and it's The Rescuers Down Under at 1990. 91, we had Beauty and the Beast. 92, Aladdin. And 94, another masterpiece, The Lion King. In 1995, we have Pocahontas, really cool film. 96 was the wonderful Hunchback of Notre Dame, really cool. 97 was Hercules, and 98 was Mulan. And in 1999, we had two films come out of the last year of the century. We had Tarzan, and we had Fantasia 2000, the IMAX experience. And then we went into the new century, and in the year 2000 we had The Emperor's New Groove, followed by Atlantis, The Lost Empire. The film started to change around this point, a little bit away from, apart from this one. I mean, this one was a lot more of a sort of more serious one, if you will, you know, not as musical orientated as a lot of the other ones. Then we're now in 2002. We had the wonderful Lilo and Stitch, and the same year we had The Treasure Planet. My lad loves both of them. 2003 we had Brother Bear, followed by 2004 Home on the Range. Now we're getting to more of the 3D animated sort of films. in 2005. We have Chicken Little, which I really like actually. 2006, The Wild, similar to the other one that was at the cinema at the time. Can't remember what it was called now, but it's quite similar to another film that was out but isn't Disney. 2007, we had Meet the Robinsons, followed by Bolt with John Travolta in 2008. 2009, The Princess and the Frog, and 2010 we had Tangled. And in 2012 we had Wreck-It Ralph, which my lad enjoyed. And in 2013 we have Frozen. That had a big impact on modern day children. I think that was so popular without the newer sort of generation of children. Just back in my day, I would have said it was probably Jungle Book, and back in my lad's day, I reckon it was The Lion King. But this one was probably the one that drew in the biggest audience of the sort of modern era. Then we have 2014 Big Hero 6, which I believe is a collab with Marvel. Then we have Zootropolis at 2016, and Monia at 2016. 2018 we had Ralph Breaks the Internet. So before we close the book, you can see what my first grumble is going to be. All these wonderful films have all been put on these wonderful discs, and they knew people were going to buy this to put in, because when you bought it, it was just empty. It had a little bit in there, but they didn't. They put it on a plain blue disc when it should have had that picture. Just a little bit crazy, right? There we go. Just a little grumble. Or that's still good to have the film. And then the last page again just goes through all the original sort of poster artwork that you have there, and that ends sort of like the book of movies, which is really cool to be set out that way. So that comes with that one. Comes with a lovely book, and it all comes in a wonderful hardback box. So that is a closer look at Disney classics 1937 to 2018. So if you're going to call it complete it. That's my grumble. There are some films that I believe should have been in here. The ones that really jump out to me is, and I'm sure they're Disney, is Pete's Dragon, The Black Hole, maybe Mary Poppins, and Bedknobs and Broomsticks. I'm sure they were all Disney, but they don't make an appearance in this box set, which I think is they should be, because if you're going to call it complete, then put them in there. And I think it's as soon as you put the word complete and they release another film, this is already out of date. But there we go. But I'm because it says complete 1937 to 1918, but it still isn't. Like I said, there's a few missing out there. It's a completely wonderful, incredible, amazing set, and it's an absolute treasure to keep in my collection. You know, because I've got every Disney film that I love. Yes, there are ones after this. We have Monia 2 and other sort of films have all come out from Disney Studios, which I can pick up if I want to be a completist, but I'm not a completist. I've never seen the point to being a completist. Buy what you love. You know, why? Now, say for an instance, say like the Rolling Stones, a band, and they've done like say they've done 15 albums, and they've done more obviously, and you like 10 of them, but you don't like 5. Why do you have to buy the 5 you don't like? You know, it just seems a little, it completes my collection. No, it doesn't. Your collection is your collection, so it needs to be what you want within that collection. That's what makes it yours. Having everything doesn't necessarily mean it's a great collection. I'd rather a collection of stuff that I love than a collection of films that I'd never watch, just to complete that like line. But some people this day and age have certain things like OCD, if you will, and things like that, and they feel, I've got to have that completed. I'm really happy with that. I would like to replace the DVDs if I see them on Blu-ray at some point, just to put them all on Blu-ray. The most frustrating thing about the set, there's two. One is that last disc. It should have been with the picture on it, and those missing movies. But apart from that, this is one of the best box sets I think I've got when it comes to films. It's just perfect, isn't it? It's just absolutely perfect. You know, it's just wonderful. These, you can watch these anytime. You know, they look great. Just one of the best ways to watch these is at night when it's dark. And then put it on. You know, everyone's probably got 4K TVs now, so the picture looks sharp. Put on the best sound that's got there, and it just takes you away. It just takes you away from the troubled world that's out there. It takes you back maybe to a time when the world was a better place and more simpler. And Disney took us away from that. So thank you, Walt, for that, and thank you for giving us all these years. 1937. So next year, how many years is that? How many years is that? 90 years? Must be. Must be. Must be 90 years next year. Yeah, it'll be 90 years of Disney classic movies. Massive shout out to my lads. See you soon, guys.